Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the special edition of This Just In Radio. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. Today we're broadcasting live from the HIMSS annual conference in Las Vegas, HIMSS21. It was not an easy road to get here, but many thanks to all of my guests that stuck with me and all of you to make this show happen today. Before we get too far, though, let me introduce my radio and on-air producers, Roberta Mullen and Greg Masters. Thank you so much, team. It's great to be here with you both.
Justin, always great to be with you. We get to do this at least a couple times a year, but we've been out of it, 17 months now was the last time we did it. Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time Greg, you and I get to work together. So.
Absolutely. I've been following you for years.
Same here.
Yeah, we've kind of met virtually or in passing on Twitter now and then. But yeah, happy to be at the boards here today.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, I'm excited for today and working with both of you, and hopefully more in the future. And it's great to be here with all of you and continue this trend for 7 years straight after my first broadcast live from HIMSS21 in Chicago. That was a phenomenal event and launched a great annual trend of key thought leaders sharing best practices and strategies to successfully navigate the future of healthcare. Over the next hour or so, we'll be bringing you the industry's most sought-after CEOs, CIOs, care providers, policy leaders, and visionaries. If you miss any part of this broadcast, though, all of this content from This Just In Radio are posted on iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Google Play, and the TuneIn platforms. As many of you know, my goal for broadcasting live each year from the HIMSS annual conference is to create an information medium that shares best practices, strategies, and actionable intelligence from the industry's leading sources and experts. We're very fortunate that most of these guests are also members of the Health Innovation Think Tank, where we transparently share healthcare and health IT best practices as well as strategies. You can find out more about the think tank at healthinnovationthinktank.com. My goal, along with all my guests today, will be to offer tactics and strategies to not only survive, but to thrive as you navigate your hospital, your physician practice, your company, or even your family through all these changes occurring across healthcare. There's more opportunity than ever before for all of us to thrive, but we must understand how healthcare is evolving, how policy and reimbursement is shifting, and where best practices and innovation can support our efforts. I hope you glean all of this over the next hour. That's at least my goal. Before we dive in, though, to my first guest, how are you doing, Roberta? And tell me about the show so far and the conference for you.
So this year we've been able to get a studio together for all of HealthcareNOW Radio.
Yes.
You being one of our, flagship original shows. You've been with us for a long time. So you're now a part of this whole deal. We had yesterday, we had a great day with several of our shows that actually did episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And today you're kicking off our day. Hopefully as good as yesterday, right?
Hopefully even better, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm very excited about our guests today. But what do you hope to get out of the conference for the remainder of today? And who are some of the guests maybe coming up later on today or some of the shows?
So we did a couple different things. We have some of the shows that are coming in and doing some episodes and speaking to whom they want to.
Mm-hmm.
But we are doing HealthcareNOW Radio, myself and Jim Tate. I think you
Of course.
remember him. Yeah. We used to do MU Live. We haven't been together forever.
Right.
So we are doing what we are calling a daily show. And we're doing like kind of what
Sure.
you're doing, where people are coming in for 4 or 5 minutes and talking about, what's going on and everything else. So we're doing the daily show every day.
Yep.
We did it yesterday. Today we have Paul from Commonwealth coming by.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I know Paul well.
We have, right? And then we have Hal coming by. So today's like the I call it my star-studded lineup, right?
Cool.
Just talking. So that should be a really good one. And then tomorrow we have, if you're available too, we're having all the hosts come by.
Okay.
Talk about the show and talk about like what they've got going on.
Sure.
And what they've learned at HIMSS. A HIMSS highlight, as we like to call them.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about you, Greg? You're obviously busy producing a lot here.
I'm pretty head down here, just making sure all the dials are properly set, blending voices and this and that. And of course, we're waiting for our guests. Now, Peter Ashkenaz has, I believe, entered.
Okay.
And would Peter be Micky?
No. I
Yes.
believe so. Oh,
That's
he works
Peter.
with Micky.
Well,
Yeah.
that's his handler.
Yes.
So yeah,
That's his
Press
handle.
manager.
that's his handler.
Oh, he's great.
So
Well, talking about
there's
HIMSS,
Peter right
though.
there. Yeah.
But
Mhm.
in talking about HIMSS, though, I was talking to Rasu, one of my guests later on, Dr. Shrestha. Will be coming on in a bit. But I was talking to him last night, and he's just, how's the show going? Because he actually was not able to make it this year in person. And I said, HIMSS is always what you make it.
That's right.
This is, I mean, I've had a full schedule, a full dance card here. 90% of my meetings are all pre-scheduled. Before I get here, I don't just come here and wing it. But I always leave time to walk the floor, see a lot of friends. But again, for anybody, in the earshot here.
And I'm just heartbroken that I'm not there to harass Greg and Carol.
Is that Peter? It's awesome.
That's Peter.
I agree with you, but I can harass them for you.
That's what I live for. I come to HIMSS just to do that.
Exactly.
Or I think to be harassed by Greg is what is probably closer to the truth.
But we miss you, Peter, greatly. But I actually had some accolades for you as I closed the show with Micky. But I'm grateful for you. You're just a great partner. You've always shared great guests for the This Justin Radio show and HealthcareNOW Radio. So, Peter, we're grateful for you and all your work and service. So, thank you. But I actually would, so I was going to kind of just keep it going with just because I actually want to encourage people to engage and why you should be, certainly respecting, this year's is a little bit different. But the reason why I attend HIMSS and other great conferences is just, it's a great opportunity. I have Rob Boshin right now, CIO of Georgia Urology in front of me, a longtime friend, but also one of the best CIOs in healthcare. And he's at every single conference and always learning. Always, looking at the best innovation out there. But these types of people, this is who you run into when you attend these conferences. You always see great peers from the past, colleagues, but also thought leaders who are just, sharing great knowledge here. So I always learn a ton. And again, attending HIMSS annual conferences is like I opened, is what you make it.
I think, too, it doesn't look like we're going to be getting out of this pandemic anytime soon. We have to start figuring out how to do. We can't spend the next 4 years locked up. So we have to figure out how to do these conferences. We have to feel safe doing them. So it's going to be everybody's comfort level, but we've got to dip our toes in somehow. And this actually, I felt very safe here.
I feel tremendously safe here.
Right?
Yes.
I love that they had the vaccination requirement. So you have that layer. Now, like the city has put on the mask deal, but you have that layer. So everything's, I think, been very cordial. Everybody's been good about it, too. So.
Yeah. And there's sanitizer everywhere. Everybody's respectful.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's been, I have no issues here.
Right. And we just have to learn to live it. We have to figure it out. It's got to be a soul, your own thing.
Life must go on.
Life has to go on, and you have to figure it out. How are you gonna get back into your deal? So.
And there are a lot of people here. I mean, there's again, it's what you make it. I walk most of the floor. I actually walked most of the floor looking for this booth. You were in a corner.
And by the way, we're like 3 seconds away from the
main entrance.
The main entrance.
I'm coming from the exact
main
opposite
entrance.
side.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. Yep. Excellent. And I think Micky is just joining us now, which is perfect timing.
It is.
So that's excellent.
Hi.
Hey, Micky. How are you, my friend?
Good. How's it going?
Fantastic. It's great to have you. Yeah. So where are you calling in from, Micky?
ONC headquarters in Newton, Massachusetts.
I love it. That's perfect. Cool. I don't know if you know this. I'm originally from Boston, so at Newton Center. So love it.
Oh, really? Is that right? Okay. Yeah, I live in West Newton. I'm actually looking out on the Fessenden School field, if you remember the Fessenden School.
Of course. Sure.
Yep. That's my house backs onto the Fessenden School.
That's excellent. Well, we're grateful to have you here today, you and your team. I was telling Peter how thankful I am. He always brings phenomenal guests, and it usually kicks off a lot of my shows. So thank you. I'm grateful for you to be here. You and I have known each other for a long time. So thank you for joining the show and circling back here. So I would just love to hear a little bit, some of your focuses from the ONC and what you guys are hoping to accomplish over the next 6 months, and some of the areas as an industry we should be focused on, as vendors and as consumers, and also as physicians and providers. So.
Yeah, sure. So, happy to talk about, certainly ONC priorities, as I discussed yesterday, are, related to the 21st Century Cures Act.
Yep.
COVID and public health is very large priority. 21st Century Cures Act is, related to both the information blocking, or as I like to call it, the information sharing,
yes.
Requirements there, as well as TEFCA, which is the Nationwide Interoperability Network. And health equity by design is another focus area for us, which is thinking through how we have more fundamental sort of consideration of health equity in the way we design and implement and use health IT systems. And then we spend a lot of time now on alignment of federal partners, which is a growing demand and opportunity because more and more agencies are getting involved in trying to do things with health IT systems.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of policy that you're helping to move forward and roll out. But what are some of the nuances, you taking over as ONC coordinator, what are some of the areas that you specifically want to focus on? I mean, I know that you have specific, regulations, rules that you're following, but what are some of the nuances that you feel you're going to bring to the office?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I think a couple of things, and some of them are related to, to those rules, which is to say, I think being able to set clear expectations in the market on what are the kinds of things that the federal government sees as priorities and how are we going to do that and what are the timelines for that. And I think, having been, my 20 years in health IT up until January, 12:01 p.m. of January 20th, we're all in the private sector. Right. And so, I got a deep appreciation there for the need for, the value that the federal government can play, and particularly ONC, but the value the federal government can play in health IT because the market is so fragmented on the supply and demand side, but also how a core part of that value is setting expectations and laying out timelines, laying out expectations so that people can plan accordingly. The worst thing is to have that be a great degree of uncertainty, knowing that federal government actions do play a strong role in the market, and if there's uncertainty around things like timelines, around and other things, then that creates sort of confusion in the market. It stalls things. It makes people hesitant to make investments, and frankly, it makes people who may want things to go in different directions. It gives the opportunity for doing things that may not be in the public interest. So, we've had a lot of focus on, with information blocking, with TEFCA, with all of these things, being transparent as possible and doing as much as we can to indicate to the market where we're headed and where we'd like to help. You've
done a great job. And I do want to let you know the 21st Century Cures Act has really fueled interoperability in the industry. Standards-based API and FHIR. I'm personally grateful for it. The industry needs it desperately, and it's working. So I just want to make sure that I know you probably through public comments and just your own relationships, you do see that, but I also want to publicly acknowledge it. It's made a huge difference. There's a lot of partners in the private sector where I work, that have opened up data that's never been opened up before. It's expedited interoperability 20 years, literally in the past year. And it's exciting.
That's great to hear.
And it's only getting better every single day. I'm watching pipes. I simplify it, but I watch these pipes double and triple in the volume of data that's going through them in standardized formats so we can consume it and share it and move it where it needs to be at such a velocity. And we have a long way to go, but we also got to respect how far we've come in the last even 2 years, year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And again, having been in the private sector for the vast majority of my health IT career, and I mentioned this yesterday too. The reason I don't like the framing of information blocking is that it has this connotation that everyone is an information blocker until proven innocent. And that just hasn't been the majority of my experience. There are bad actors out there, absolutely, or people who do things that are, no one's a bad actor.
Correct.
But for the vast majority of those for whom this is a change, what I've seen and lived is that it's a question of priority. It's just a question of being able to say, information sharing is actually a priority, and you need to move this up on your priority list. And organizations are ready to do that once they know that this has got to be a priority among the 23 other things they have on their priority list.
Very true. So what are some of the things that we should be thinking about, moving forward, a little bit, visionary and just thinking about 2022 or 2023? Obviously, we have a lot of work to do today. You just walked through, regarding interoperability, regarding, moving data. But what we should be looking forward to, come next year and the year after to look ahead. I know it's tough from a federal government standpoint because you have the here and now and again, a lot of boundaries to work within. But what are some of your thoughts there, Micky?
Oh no, we've got the crystal ball. Did I say that out loud? I shouldn't have said that.
Love it.
I would mention a couple things. One is I think that moving to platform business and technical models, I think is the inevitable trend, right? There's a novel by Joseph Heller not Catch-22. It might have been Good as Gold or something happened. I forget. I don't think it was Catch-22. Where there's a character in there and, offers a piece of advice, which is don't screw around with the inevitable. They used a little bit more colorful language. I won't use that on a PG-rated station here. Right. But I think you can probably guess what they said. Yeah. But anyway, and I would just say that, like platform business models, APIs and apps, we've seen that has had profound effects in almost every other part of the internet economy. Yes. And it's now starting in healthcare. And you alluded to it, but I think that there's more about completely engaging and buying into that kind of model. I know John Halamka is going to be, following me here, I think. And, he is the voice of the platform business model at Mayo Clinic platform. And so, he's much more articulate on it than I am. But I think that, being able to really embrace that first off and say, what does that mean for my business? What does that mean for the things I'm going to do? Is, the first thing. Algorithms are certainly another component of this, right? More and more, we're getting into that. John also will be, have a lot to say about that. But I think that's just inevitable. With more data, more computing capability, you've got both the benefit as well as the downside and the dark side of what algorithms can do in intended and unintended ways. So I think that's just here. Again, it's inevitable. The other thing is what I pointed to, which is health equity by design. Mm-hmm. I just think that, that as we think about the ways that we've thought about software design for safety, for privacy, for security, I think that that is a part of just where we are as a society, and also certainly from a federal government priority perspective, that thinking about health equity as one of those core parameters that needs to be built into systems that identify health equity issues and help us to rectify those health equity issues as a fundamental design component is also going to be, about where this is all headed as well. It's
excellent. And I will say everything you just touched on, I'm seeing lots of that just even here on the HIMSS show floor now. So it's great to see that we've already begun some of that, but obviously we have a long way to go. And I appreciate you sharing the crystal ball. I mean, obviously the ONC and the work that you and your team are doing is fundamental to this industry. And I always try to close here with the respect for the ONC. It's a lot of the times a thankless job. It's an amazing service. Your team works so hard. People don't realize, Steve and the whole team and Peter, you guys read every single comment that comes in, and we're grateful for that. And you have for years and years and years and years and years. And I just want to make sure people they engage your work. They read what you publish. They respond to it, share their thoughts, their best practices. I know people tend to always share what's bad, but it's very important for the federal government to hear what's good, what's working, so you guys can leverage that and then fix what may not be right or may be wrong. And so, I'm a strong believer in that. It served me very well through my career, and I'm just grateful for you, for your work, for your team, and all you guys do every single day. So, Micky, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you to all your team.
Great. Thank you. Really enjoyed it.
You got it. Thanks, Micky. Take care, my friend. Have a great day.
Bye. You too.
And I think we have John here in queue. Hey, John.
Hey, great to see you.
Great to see you, my friend. So, Dr. John Halamka, author and president of the Mayo Clinic platform. Welcome back to the show, my good friend.
Well, thanks. Coming to you from Mayo Clinic today. So, Rochester, Minnesota, as opposed to Las Vegas.
Well, or Unity Sanctuary Farm, correct?
That's it. There you go.
He usually dials in from there, and I love it, and we always talk about it. But, John, I know you have a busy day. I'm grateful for you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. So, first of all, how are you doing, my friend?
Well, it's a remarkable time, right? You've probably heard me say multiple times, the alignment of technology, policy, and culture is important for breakthrough innovation. Mm-hmm. There is no better time in history than the urgency created by COVID and the collaboration, what I'll call reduction in competitive angst, for us to come together and do amazing things in digital health.
I completely agree and love it and love the energy. So what are some of the healthcare and health IT trends that you're seeing in the industry? We always love this. We always love to hear your crystal ball. So what are your thoughts?
Right. So every HIMSS has a word, right? Yeah. Blockchain, maybe 2017. Mm-hmm. And, we got into machine learning. Well, if you look at today, what we're seeing is this unique application of algorithms and novel data sources to build continuous wellness and ongoing care recommendations. So the crystal ball is really this. If we're going to be using algorithms increasingly, we better understand something about their performance, ethics, bias, fairness, fitness for purpose. A lot of energy in the next several quarters will be to labeling our algorithms. So it's a bit like a soup can. You pick up a soup can and it says 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 50 grams of fat, and 700 calories a serving. I hope you wouldn't eat that.
Correct. It would not.
Well, what if the algorithm says developed on white males and we're going to be using this on black females? Would you use that? No. Right? You want to understand something about the algorithms we deploy to ensure they're going to care for the patient in front of you. That's going to be a really important trend. And figuring out how to bring data and algorithms together in a secure, privacy-preserving, and IP-preserving container will be another major trend.
Excellent. And also, I don't know, did you hear Micky's segment before you? He actually referenced you regarding APIs and FHIR and all that good stuff.
I did not, unfortunately.
Okay. He referenced you and, well, first of all, how proficient you are, because he just predicted the continued growth and obviously gave a lot of accolades to what's been accomplished. You've been a strong proponent for decades now on interoperability, but specifically FHIR and what that can bring to our communities. And we're starting to see a lot of that in action now. I mentioned to Micky here, I've seen personally, 20 years, of interoperability expedited in the past year. Just literally that much. I've seen pipes open up, data flowing more than ever before than I've seen in the previous 20 years. So, grateful for the work that's being done and where we're going to go. But what are you seeing? So what are some of the best practices that you would offer from your perch and your background and expertise to other CIOs and leaders of health systems here at HIMSS to navigate where we are today? What are some of the areas that you'd continue to focus on for them?
Well, sure. So every time we implement a new project, we have choices. You could put a server in a closet somewhere, or you could use the cloud. You could create a proprietary interface of bubblegum and baling wire, or use FHIR.
There you go.
And so what I am seeing across all of my CIO colleagues and friends, they're saying, you know what? It might be hard. It might be change. It might, in fact, require budgetary reallocation from capital to OPEX. Let's do every next project in the cloud. Mm-hmm. Let's do every next interface with FHIR, even if FHIR may not have completely fully baked data elements for my purpose. Using JavaScript object notation and a FHIR approach is the right thing to do.
Yep.
And let's do this recognizing that we're not silos, right? We work in a global ecosystem. And I have seen this last year bring collaboration, joint ventures, and partnerships where people are coming together for societal benefit and hegemony of none. So there you go. Cloud, FHIR, collaboration. That's your secret ingredient.
I love it. That's awesome. So what should we be looking at in the next couple of years? You obviously have a very clear crystal ball. And so where do you, either where you're focused or where you say we should all be thinking about in 2 to 3 years from now, maybe something that we haven't thought of, that we haven't seen on a billboard somewhere. What are you thinking about?
So I'm going to say something rather controversial to you.
Excellent.
Societal resilience. Mm-hmm. And what do I mean by that? Pick up the New York Times this morning and try to avoid getting depressed.
Right.
Right. Oh, we've got fires and floods and pestilence. We've got lack of collaboration and polarization. Well, ask yourself, if the human species is going to survive, how do we put in place the elements we need for societal resistance? And let me give you an example.
Please.
So we've done all this great work with cloud and FHIR. Well, in a time of COVID, what did we learn? Well, EHRs may very well have some standard APIs, but has anyone tried to interface ERP and EHR so that we actually understand the supply chain that is necessary to care for the patients that are going to be coming to us in the next few weeks? No one's done such work, right? So what we ended up doing was we used a highly advanced interoperability method called Excel. You may have used it.
I have. Great.
And that's utterly not scalable.
Right.
So as you look at these next couple of quarters, we need to ask ourselves, where are we doing things that are very manual, that are very much not going to be, for whatever the next pandemic or next challenge we have, not going to be fit for purpose? And let's put in the plumbing so that we will be able to flip a switch and be able to say, who needs a ventilator? How many masks do we have? Where are the drugs and the vaccines? Oh, how well are they working? Because although we did a reasonable job over the last year, we did it, I will tell you, with a whole lot of sweat
Yes.
and manual processes as opposed to something more societally resilient and scalable.
Excellent wisdom, John. I couldn't agree more. And it's kind of ironic. One of the largest ERP companies reached out to me last week to begin a collaboration. Of ERP, which is just interesting because you bring it up. They reached out, and so there is some thought there. That's a specific use case, but still, at least some of us are also thinking in that direction. So what's your thought? And I actually think it's very sage advice around being ready just for the next big thing and what happened, because we're already seeing it a little bit with this Delta variant. Obviously HIMSS shifted pretty dramatically over the past week, a lot of participation, but it's also outside of HIMSS. It's travel, it's people's daily lives. I'm even changing some of the things that I'm doing just to make sure that I'm always as safe as possible. What are some of a foundation there, or an area of just, as we close, a best practice to help people over the next 3 to 6 months even be as wise as they can be, or think about something that maybe they aren't thinking about today? Because you have a great perspective.
Well, not surprisingly, it's all about data. On Saturday morning, Mayo Clinic and a number of collaborators published to a preprint server. I'll send you the link.
Great. A
study of the efficacy of Pfizer and Moderna vaccines against Deltavarian. And here's the numbers. We saw in the standard COVID, the alpha version, 86 to 90% efficacy. What we found was when we start looking at Delta, which is now about 70% of the infections in this country, 42% efficacy of the vaccine against Delta. Now, okay, that sounds very bad. But remember, although you might get infected, you won't get sick. Right? So you need to understand, I see, there's a difference between infection efficacy and serious illness or death. And therefore, plan that as we see all these variants, at least the variants we know about now, they will be virulent and they will be contagious, and you might get infected, but you'll be okay if you're vaccinated. That's the kind of decision you can make if you look at the data.
That is excellent advice. And that's actually, I actually do want to read what you published, because when I was researching, when the variant stepped up, and I was researching my travel plans over the coming weeks, I actually dove into the Wall Street Journal a little bit because I wanted to look for a credible source also, and I think they did a pretty good job. And I looked at several different media sources to understand exactly what you just went through. You found through your own research, but I had to go out on my own and find out, what does this really mean for me? What are because I care to, obviously getting sick I'm not so concerned about, but obviously getting severely ill I am concerned about. And so that's the variance I looked for. I've been vaccinated, so I looked for, is this okay? And what will this mean to me if I do get sick? And it's exactly what you just brought up is what I found from my initial research, but now you obviously have much better research. So,
well, I'll send you the link. It's public. You can share it with all your listeners.
I will certainly do that. John, anything in parting and just from your words of wisdom from us, or that you'd like for us to know, or some of the things that you're thinking about that, you're going to focus on? We covered a little bit on the opening show, but anything in parting words in the last couple of minutes here, or a minute here?
Sure. Boundless optimism.
Love it.
Right? And why do I say that? So Margaret Mead told us, right, that the change, as we look in any society, is generally accomplished by a small group of people, thoughtful and committed. Indeed, in fact, it's the only thing that's really ever worked to create societal change. So I would tell your listeners, if we don't organize to make the place a better world and to change our industry, who will?
That's right.
It's all up to us.
I love it. Great wisdom, sage advice. Thank you so much, John, Dr. Halamka. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, my friend. Thank you. All the best.
Be well.
Will do. Thank you. Dr. Shrestha, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Great to see you.
You too.
So my next guest, Dr. Rasu Shrestha, Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer and Executive Vice President at Atrium Health. Welcome back to the show, my good friend.
Well, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be back.
First of all, how are you doing?
Well, thanks for asking. I'm doing all right. There's just so much that we are doing here at Atrium Health and really across the industry. It is such an opportune time, especially for me, who's in charge of strategy and transformation. I think, when you look at the pandemic and everything that we're going through right now, there isn't really a better opportunity to accelerate the pace of strategy and transformation than the one that we're in right now. So busy.
I love it. Actually, that's how I opened my show. That was, one of the components is I just think there's more opportunity to thrive, not just survive through all this, but to thrive through all this. There's so much evolution. And if you're on top of it, you've been a part of it, and you understand the mechanics. There's more opportunity than ever before, in my opinion. So I think that you feel
Absolutely.
the same way. Excellent.
That's right.
And also, the reason I love you is your boundless optimism. That's how John Halamka just closed his last segment. I said, "What any parting words of wisdom?" And he said, "Boundless optimism." And that's always you and your mantra. So I look forward to this segment. So kind of diving in a little bit, what are some of the healthcare and health IT trends that you're seeing in the industry, Rasu?
Well, the pandemic really has accentuated the existing cracks and the fault lines in how care is delivered and how, the many inherent biases still exist in the what, the how, and the whys of healthcare. And if I could summarize it into what I call 5 global truths, these are the following, right? So one is that we are one global community. If there's one thing that the pandemic has opened our eyes to, it is that we are one global community. That this virus that, started out of Wuhan in China has essentially affected every one of us across the globe and beyond even, right? So when you think about, all of the race and the space that we've been having right now, the pandemic's been top of mind for everyone. Number 2, the walls between medicine and public health have really come down. And I think that has specific implications in terms of how we continue to evolve. Number 3, the walls between health sciences and life sciences have really come down as well. So think about drug development, vaccine development, and all of the things that we need to do in terms of translational sciences as well. And then 4th is cloud, virtual, and AI. These are not just aspirational elements anymore. These are foundational must-have components that we have to embrace moving on forward. And then last but not least, not to throw this out there, but fee-for-service has really failed the test of the pandemic. Right. And I think we really need to rethink the business models of healthcare delivery all through and through.
I love it. I could not agree more. So balancing that, what are a couple of strategies, 2 or 3 strategies or best practices that you can share that you're, with my audience that you're using today to navigate a lot of that and those trends?
I'll pick out 3. First is really around data and interoperability. The second, I'll talk to health equity and some of the things that we're doing around social impact. Excellent. And then third, very quickly, burnout. And I think that's really important, especially given everything that we're living through right now. So very quickly, in terms of data and interoperability, the antidote to the massive distrust in information and some of the privacy concerns is not information blocking. It's open data, it's open APIs, and more open policies. So we're doing a lot of things here at Atrium Health to really push forward with making sure that the data flows much more freely in the domains that we're dealing with. From the silos that data oftentimes get locked in terms of the clinicians and their repositories and the EMRs, to the data domains that our patients and our consumers reside in, right? And that's not in the EMRs; it's in their devices, in their cell phones, in patient-entered data, but also in their personal preferences and in the circle of trust that they have. So lots of things that need to happen to really push forward with this. I call it the crawl, walk, run journey of interoperability, and I think we have the opportunity to really run and perhaps to even fly if we're able to embrace the notion of open APIs.
I agree.
Yeah. And specific to health equity, there's just so many things that we've really doubled down on here at Atrium Health. Our mission is health, hope, and healing for all. And the for all part of that mission statement, has really been something that we've been living up to throughout the pandemic and more. We organized what we call our community immunity for all. A number of specific things that we've been doing in terms of the vaccine hesitancy and the apathy that really exists out there, leveraging the power of data and analytics to really drive forward with things like the COVID-19 vaccine demographic electronic dashboard, the things that we're doing around geospatial information technology and how we're then impacting the specifics of the communities that we're serving, even in the mass vaccination efforts that we've been leading. Really abjectly focused in on the underserved. And 21% of those vaccinated in a number of our mass vaccination efforts were from underserved populations, and overall 127% improvement in the number of Black and African Americans, and overall a 212% improvement in the number of Hispanics and Latinos that were targeted. So very, very much a data-centered effort. And then, last but not least is really burnout. And we could go on talking about this forever, but, burnout, I think, is really an important issue for us to address head on, taking a much more structured, a system-wide, aligned approach with dedicated resources that are more sort of top-down, but also bottoms-up in terms of the continuous data-driven analytical approach to burnout, and this notion of resilience. How do we make this the best place to care? And that's a big effort that we've really been leading across the enterprise here at Atrium.
So just on that, because I know burnout is significant, and we've been hearing this for years. Do you have like a strike team, or do you have a philosophy, or how do you tackle that for an organization of your magnitude?
Yeah, all of that and more. So I think really essential for us to identify and address the specific problematic workflows, and we have to leverage technology to reduce the friction and the frustration, which is the major cause of burnout. We're all motivated to care for our patients, but at the same time, the passion that I came to healthcare with, as a clinician, that oftentimes gets dwindled as a result of the technology challenges, the do more with less mentalities, and the misalignment in terms of the incentives. And so I think it's really important for us to make sure that we have a much more analytical and a much more aligned approach to target the very root causes of the burnout in the first place.
Excellent. So looking forward, in the next couple of years, I know we have a lot right before us, the next 3 to 6 to 8 to 12 months, but thinking ahead a little bit of where the puck's going to be in healthcare and health IT. What should we keep an eye out for, or what are you looking forward to, or what are your thoughts there on what we should navigate in the future?
It's a great question, and I'm right on the verge of essentially working through with my team on our 2025 strategy.
Love it.
And when I think about, where's the puck's going, and how do we make sure that we're able to not just be reactive, but proactive, the one thing that really comes to mind is that healthcare is hard. Everyone wants to fix healthcare. But healthcare, as we know, is mired in complexity. It is deeply personal. The economics don't really work. The incentives are not really aligned. And change is always hard given the embrace of the status quo. So I think the one thing that we really have to do is to understand the notion that healthcare is rapidly moving from the supply-driven, provider-centric environment to more of a consumer-centric, demand-driven environment. That this pace of change that we're navigating right now really calls for more of the ecosystems of care to maximize the value that we really need to push forward with. And we need to make sure as health systems that we are the conveners to orchestrate this comprehensive health delivery mandate, really looking at all of the different elements of the social determinants of healthcare, the population health, but also the precision medicine elements of what it means to really personalize the care to that N of one. And then last but not least, just to put it out there, I think, as we're living through this pandemic, the one other thing that I'm really, paying close attention to is the talent war and how, the work environment that is rapidly changing in front of our very eyes, as well as the demands that I talked about in terms of the consumers and the pull that we're seeing from our patients. I think that's really going to have a dramatic effect in how we retain talent, how we recruit talent, and how we really incentivize our workforce to continue to really excel at the top of their license and beyond.
A lot of wisdom there, Rasu. I just had that conversation with people yesterday, and actually over the last 2 days, just our talent pool and the stress that we're putting on the employees. There's a lot happening behind that. And so I'm glad that you brought that up because, that was a side conversation that I had that I've never spoken about on air because it's something actually fast evolving in the market and the communities and in our health systems and just, all of our companies even today. So I'm glad you brought that up and thank you for that. So obviously you're always a phenomenal guest, my friend. Thank you for joining this show. I know you have a busy schedule. You took the time out to join us. So thanks again. And I hope you have a phenomenal rest of your day, my friend.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Right,
bye-bye.
Bye.
Paul, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
It's great to see you. Excellent. So you're a first-time guest, so grateful for you taking the time to join us. Where are you calling in from?
I'm actually on vacation in Colorado. I vacated here because I thought I was going to have to pop over to HIMSS, but Athena decided to not go to HIMSS, so I'm here.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I'm glad you're here. Great to meet you. I have a great respect for you and your team, and my company is a great strategic partner of yours, and we were just talking about all the API integration. I had Micky Tripathi here, and then John Halamka, and even Rasu talked about it. All my previous guests were talking about the importance of FHIR and API integration, and there's no better leader from a vendor's perspective than Athena. So thank you very much for all you do and all you guys support in the industry. Starting there.
Well, thank you very much.
You got it. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts and what healthcare, digital health trends that you're seeing in the industry from your perspective.
Well, of course, since we're still in the middle of the COVID pandemic, telehealth and virtual care definitely come to mind. We saw kind of a panic adoption of telehealth going from, at least across the Athena network, less than 2.2% of all visits on telehealth to like 35% back in April of last year. Things have settled down quite a bit. It's now about 7% or so of all visits are telehealth. And I think people are taking stock and saying, hey, this is actually a new tool. It's a new way of engaging patients. We're seeing more visits after hours, and getting rid of the waiting room has been awesome. So a lot of cool stuff there. Somewhat related, I think we're seeing better infection control in general. COVID isn't the first viral illness that people have when they go to the doctor, and people are still wearing masks and rethinking the kind of hygiene around the physical office when people come in, which I think is going to bode well for the future going forward. And then lastly, value-based care is still here and continuing to increase. And I think as we got through the COVID crisis, there's a lot of people on value-based care contracts that spent a lot of time making sure that their high-risk patients were getting in and getting the preventative care that they need. And just seeing a lot of great trends around remote patient monitoring and care management in that space.
Excellent insight there, because actually my next two guests, value-based care is a significant component to their business models. So you're spot on, Paul. So what are a couple, maybe 2 or 3 best practices or strategies that you can share with my audience to help navigate some of those trends that you just talked about?
Well, certainly on the telehealth side, everyone pretty much just implemented telehealth, immediately and in a panic, and hey, just replace the schedule with telehealth visits instead of physical visits, which isn't really the way to think about that tool. And so I think now that things have calmed down, what we're seeing is people really looking at telehealth and figuring out how it really fits into their practice for their patients. We're seeing a lot of after-hours visits. We're seeing shorter visits, kind of indicating that these are kind of work-in visits, often booked, same day or day before. So it's becoming more of the convenience tool, I think, that we all hoped it would be, and obviously appropriately augmented with physical visits. The other thing that's been very cool is that we also demonstrated that we could do things really quickly in terms of adopting technology.
Right.
And we've changed our release philosophy a little bit at Athena. We are a SaaS-based software, so we can release literally every day. But we've been reluctant to do that because we don't want to impose lots of change on our clients. Every week it's a new way to use Athena. So change is good, but that's too much. But we've learned a lot about how we can appropriately put out changes that aren't disruptive. We had to do it a lot during COVID because the world was changing so fast. Telehealth reimbursement was changing. We just needed to get the order sets and the clinical content around COVID out. And we've really opened the aperture a little bit in terms of how we can drive change and help our clients change in a structured but thoughtful way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think the importance of telehealth, and like you brought up, we fast forwarded it about 5 years or so inside a lot of our care strategies. And that's really important. A lot of us have talked about the importance of telehealth. It's not telehealth as a component for episodic care. It's actually how to integrate telehealth into a care strategy for a practice or a health system or a health organization, whatever it is. What telehealth can do, what those visits can do. Obviously can be much quicker. Can actually help triage care where it needs to be. Can give care where into communities to improve access. There's so many components that just were not brought forward. We knew the importance. You've been in the industry for a long time. You knew the importance of telehealth, but just people weren't incorporating it, and there's a lot of reasons why, but, COVID brought all that forward for us. And so I think that's a great opportunity for us to mature our care models and really understand and respect, what telehealth can do, virtual care, where it's important, where it's not important, and then what's also where in-person care is is critical, and then also what we can leverage and manage virtually and via telehealth or telecare type appointment. So I completely agree with you. So I'm thinking a little bit moving forward over the next 2 to 3 years, and from your perspective as a thought leader, but even Athena's and their strategies, what should we be thinking about in 2 to 3 years from now? I know a lot of us, we're just worried about getting through the day. We have really crazy busy days. But putting in that crystal ball a little bit, or what do you hope for, or what do you think you're going to navigate it, again, as a thought leader, as a company in 2 to 3 years from now?
Yeah, no, I definitely feel you on the getting through the day and dealing with the crisis du jour.
Exactly.
But it's certainly as we look ahead in our space, we see a big opportunity to make the EHR smart. Mm-hmm. In some levels, we rushed EHR adoption when meaningful use came out. There was a big rush to adopt EHRs, and I think we're now in that phase where it's settling in. We're understanding the pros and the cons, and where EHRs have really made a big difference, and where there are still some opportunities. I think one of the big ones is to make the EHR smart, to really understand the context of what's happening. So understand all the patient information, not just know that there's a vital over there to put on the screen, but really understand what that vital means. And understand the context of the patient. Is this a well visit? Is this a post-op wound check? Is this a pre-op visit? Is this a sick visit? What's the nature of the visit? What's the nature of the specialist? Yep. And then the EHR workflows can start to become much more delightful for the physician. Much more intuitive, much less redundant asking of questions, right. Much less presentation, frankly, of irrelevant data. So I really think we're going to see a big revolution in that over the coming years. And somewhat related to that is I think the full expression of consumerism mm-hmm. in terms of digital engagement with the health system. Telehealth has kind of forced that a little bit. But if you looked before COVID, the kind of median encounter out there in the world looked a lot like 1990.
Right.
People are calling in for appointments. People are getting paper requisitions and going to labs. And I think the fact that we now couldn't contact each other, so we couldn't hand over paper so easily, forced us to get more virtual. I think patients are more and more demanding that digital engagement that they're experiencing in the rest of their lives in the healthcare space. And that's just going to do so many good things to some of the stuff you're talking about in terms of value-based care and patient engagement and mm-hmm. taking care of patients outside of the context of the visit or the encounter.
It's excellent. And I completely agree with you on the smarter EHR. And that's how actually Rasu closed his session with me a few moments ago, is just around physician burnout and the need that we need more intelligent systems. We need to really continue to always, figure out those workflows, make those workflows better for providers and for all staff, part of our health ecosystems. And certainly, and as you know, consumerism and then for the patients. But we really, and I know this is a focus for Athena, and I know that, really making that life better for the physician, managing that physician burnout, and just staying ahead of that. So I applaud you. I know you guys actually done some great work, even, leading into HIMSS, talking about your focus there for the physician and the care providers. So I know you're on point there. So any words of, parting wisdom? Even I think one of the questions I've left a couple of my guests with is just, as a thought leader with this Delta variant and how we should be thinking about, even as leaders of our companies or leaders of our communities and leaders in healthcare, and even our families, any parting words around on what we can do in the next 3 to 6 months to be as successful as possible?
Well, I think the dialogue on COVID is shifting from, trying to eradicate it or make it go away to try to figure out how to live with it.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of work going around making sure that we've got everyone access to vaccines that's willing to take them and mm-hmm. helping provide education there. Thinking about best practices as we learn more about how this virus is transmitted. To think, if we could learn more about what are the settings where this occurs, we can then take preventative action that's more targeted. Some of the things that are going on are very broad brush, mm-hmm. just because we don't really understand the modalities of where is the virus, where is it most likely to be transmitted, and therefore how do we take precautions. So I'm super excited to see us learn, because I think it's also going to benefit for other viral illnesses that we have today and that we'll have in the future. So hopefully this is a great opportunity for us as a society to learn and behave intelligently and thoughtfully and learn to live with this situation that I think is going to be with us for a while.
Yeah, great advice, Paul. Thank you. Well, hey, I know you took time out of your vacation to join us, so thank you for that. Grateful to have you on the show, and I know Monica Bulbier wants to say thank you for all your great partnership from her company and Cure for You. She's about to be a guest here, and I also just everybody in the industry and how you guys, again, I want to your API, what you guys invest there for your ecosystem, your partner ecosystem. Many of us are thankful, so thank you for all that work, Paul. and to your team.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and best of luck. And sorry I'm not down on the show floor with you.
No problem. We'll see you next year. Take care, my friend. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Have a great one. Bye. All right. And my next guest, John Zimmerman, will make his way up to the stage here, and then we'll shift around here. So give us about 10 seconds to shift seats. Thank you. Come on, John. Welcome back to the show, John. How are you, my friend?
I am so delighted to be here. Thank you for having me on this fantastic panel you put together today, Justin. I'm well, and I know you are.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at you.
It's been a great day, great morning. John Zimmerman, Chief Executive Officer at Holon Solutions. And obviously, it's great to have John back on the air. You were with us in 2017 when you and I started to talk again here over the past couple of months. I went back to my notes, and you were a guest. HIMSS, it was HIMSS21. I believe it was in Orlando. But anyhow, you were a phenomenal guest then, and I'm just grateful to have you back, my friend.
Well, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So first of all, how's the show been for you? When did you get in town?
Yesterday, and had a lot of very powerful meetings with great friends. I was delighted to get a big squeeze from Adam Gale from Class.
Oh, cool, yeah.
So I'm a big fan of what Class does and his leadership team.
Actually, I've never had them on air. I've got to invite Adam and that team to get have some airtime with me. I've never added Class to my run of show, but I need to.
I think I know what he would like to talk about.
It's
so
awesome.
We'll talk about that.
Love it.
He's doing some great stuff.
Cool. So I would love your perspective. What are some of the health IT trends that you're seeing in the industry?
Couple of things. First, I think we deserve to put a shout out to all the healthcare workers who are keeping us safe and taking care of us when we need it. They are a godsend, and we appreciate them.
Thank you.
Trends, right? We believe in appropriate care for everyone anywhere, as you and I have discussed in our other lives, okay? Yeah. So what are we seeing, right? We're seeing multiple simultaneous data explosions from a lot of different areas. There's more data being created from care delivery, from patient reported.
Love it.
There are more requirements and more solutions for analytics, quality, cost, transparency, efficiency. We see that one. There's more settings of care, as you just talked about with Paul Brient from Athena Health. With more mobility, we think that's happening, and more process automation, and with John Halamka's comments, more available intelligence. Okay, it creates burden though on the practices who have to deliver and people who administer care. There's a death by 1,000 cuts. They're getting slaughtered with insights, not in their workflow, and that's a problem. And there's last couple things: better data language for us all to use as a new foundation. Hats off to the HL7 Fire people who are doing such great work to try to take the cacophony and make it processable more than ever before. And isn't this a great time for us to start to lift our heads up a little bit and using your show, your platform here to really think of what is the kind of system we want to have.
Right.
So that's something we're seeing right now.
I love it. And it's actually a great way to even close that talk, just because that's how I selected all of my guests today. They're people who they're creating the future of healthcare. My specific guests, are creating what we're going to see tomorrow. These are the thought leaders. These are the people that I wanted here, because I want to make sure that, we together, it takes all of us to create our future and what we want to work within. And these people do it. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
John.
John Halamka's quote about boundless optimism from Margaret Mead and who's going to actually do this. Hats off to him again. Yeah.
Completely agree. So what are a few best practices or strategies that you can share with my audience to help us navigate those trends you mentioned?
There's basically three that I've come up with. One is collaboration, right? Know your local ecosystem. Everybody's in a local or national, but a local ecosystem of key stakeholders. And what kind of information sharing would enable your business and their business? That's where collaboration comes from. We're moving from transactional interchanges between two parties to multi-party stakeholders among multiples. It's a new way of doing things, but that's why I think Paul said value-based care is still here. That's part of it.
Oh, yes.
The second one, I'm going to steal from Simon Sinek and some of the smart
Simon
things
Sinek.
going on from Amazon, which is understand the why.
You got it.
And work backwards for solution adoption. So make sure we know what we're trying to solve. Make sure that there are key sets of curated data, information, knowledge that should be delivered to which personas. There's no panacea. There's work to be done here, and have to be careful not to replace alert fatigue with insight fatigue. That would be a really bad thing. Okay? And last, let your voice be heard. Whoever is listening in this audience, their voices matter.
Yes.
HL7, Weedy, Class, Adams, one of them, the American Academy for Home Care Medicine. These are all great examples of voices that are working together to create a new, better sharing environment. But we need everybody's voices to be heard so we can do things that matter.
And so that's excellent advice, John. And that's actually almost all my guests have mentioned in some capacity collaboration and the need, and actually a lot of the components even around fire and interoperability that you mentioned. And that's actually why I love doing this show, is because I look for themes. And what's really cool is we're all saying similar things, and we're all moving in the same direction. And that's actually how you can accomplish a lot. So that's extremely exciting. I always love working with you, John. So now, thinking ahead, I know it's difficult, and I mentioned this to Paul and all my guests. I know we have to get through today because we are crazy schedules. But thinking about 2 or 3 years from now, what should we have our eye on, or what do you think some of the things we should look out for?
I have 4 words for that.
Sure.
Stay well, stay home. Okay? The extraordinary advances in information, communications, biomedical, and other technologies are enabling smarter preventions, monitoring, Paul talked about that, maintenance and healing, essentially anywhere where the consumer is. We're going to be in a world where people are going to have to do much less going to care and having much more care coming to them.
Excellent.
So now is the time, right now is the time to start to organize the path to this new and better world. I think there's no shortage of technologies or visions. What we need is a new, bold, galvanizing, multi-stakeholder collaborative movement to ensure we enable appropriate care for everyone anywhere.
Yep. That's excellent. I love it. And I completely agree. And, with interoperability, what we're doing with APIs, we're moving data around. We're looking at strategies for how to, enable remote care. And that's just a big component even here at HIMSS. But I know where it's going and at home. And managing that and pushing data where it needs to be, and pushing care to you at home, pushing care to wherever you are, not in a facility or at a practice or wherever at a hospital. So excellent advice, great points. John, you're always great, a phenomenal guest, great insights, and I look forward to collaborating with you even off air because I know we got some great stuff going. So
we do.
Awesome.
Thank you again for having me. It's great to be here with
always,
you.
My friend, and have a great rest of your conference.
You bet, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, John. You got it, buddy.
Bye.
John Zimmerman, Holon Solutions. Phenomenal thought leader and frequent guest. Thank you. And now my next and final guest, Dr. Monica Bulbier, a frequent guest as well, member of the think tank, consumerism expert, and she's walking up onto stage now. And what a great show, Greg, huh? This is just everybody's moving right through. Everybody's on time. You can't beat that.
There's a lot of moving parts here on the technical side, so everything's working well right now. Thanks for everybody coming in on time.
You got
Made it a lot easier.
Completely agree. Great to see you again. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great.
Awesome. Dr. Bolbjerg, I'm great. Founder and CEO of Cure for You. Certainly, and also my business partner at Cure for You. So she's a great colleague, but also friend and longtime thought leader in the industry. We first met through my think tank, and you always have a great consumerism voice. And almost every single guest today has spoken about the importance of consumerism. And I did not really plan that you to be my final guest and kind of back clean up for that topic, but it just everything always works out well. So, first of all, the show been great for you?
It has been awesome, yes.
Yeah. HIMSS, someone asked me this morning, how's your HIMSS going? And I said, and actually it was Rasu. It was actually last night. I was closing my day, just getting ready for today. And he's like, how's the conference? I said, HIMSS is what you make it. It's you can get out there, you can shake a lot of hands or elbow bumps as we're doing here to be safe, COVID safe in most cases, but it's what you make it. And it's it's been a phenomenal show. A lot of our meetings have been all preset and everybody's showing up. So, I completely agree. So what are some of the healthcare and health IT trends that you're seeing in the industry, Monica?
Well, we've been talking about consumerism for a long time. But I think what is happening now in the industry is that it's actually, people are talking about consumerism and digital health as a strategy, which is really what is changing now.
Yes.
So it's not something like, interesting, what could that be? People really sit down and think about what does that mean for my organization? How can I better help my patients? And how can I leverage consumerism? Because everybody knows it's here to stay now.
Yeah. So what are a few best practices that you offer as a thought leader yourself or through Cure for You, to share to navigate those trends?
I think the most important here is to not forget the provider when you talk about consumerism.
It's excellent.
Because at the end of the day, if we don't help the provider get better,
that's right,
we never get the patient better. So, and really to get there, you need to think about having platform instead of point solution. You need to think about integrations and automation so that the provider and staff can keep on working in their current environment and leveraging technology to get the data out to the patients and the data back again that the provider needs.
It's excellent. And Rasu mentioned that just to the importance of the physician health, and you just led off with that. And don't forget the provider, because they're the linchpin in that component. And in all this consumerism that's happening, we got to make sure that we're creating the workflows. Everybody keeps bringing up, all guests, API integration, and the patient, and making sure that this data is flowing. And then we're also, keeping provider part of this process. So, your advice is spot on. What are some of the other, best practices that you're working on at Cure for You to offer out, or even as a thought leader? Because I know that you're doing a lot of public speaking. Yeah. But what, even, or some of your messaging here at HIMSS, because obviously these large health systems that are here, what are some of the best practices that you're sharing with those larger health systems and organizations?
Well, I think if you really want to embrace consumerism, you can get a lot of positive things out of it for your organization. Mm-hmm. But think of it as a platform strategy. Think about owning the data. Mm-hmm. Think about how you now can, with one or maybe two solutions instead of 10 and 15 solutions,
right. Yep.
Really it makes it possible for the large organizations actually to manage these things, because having 10, 15 solutions is not manageable at all.
Right.
So another thing that I think is really important is somehow the support for staff and patients, because this is still new. There are new workflows. How do you do that? And one thing that we've seen is really efficient is to provide the patient support. That helps our customers immensely. Because we can help them kick it off and so on, and they can focus on their internal providers and staff.
No, it's an excellent point. And actually, Rasu brought that up about, your thoughts on platform, because they're looking for ways, and I know this is near and dear to your heart, of just making that your physician yourself and making that physician workflow much better and being able to collapse multiple different products or functionalities onto a single platform. And that's a big, I've seen that messaging here, but I know that you've been advocating that for, many years, decades at this point.
Yeah. But I also think it's think about automating workflows with protocols. Mm-hmm. Think about how you can individualize care for the patients by providing the right amount of data to the physician and vice versa to the patient as well, to motivate patients. People think that you give them a home monitoring device home and they'll be healthy tomorrow.
Right.
I mean, these people have been with these
chronically ill for a long time.
Very long time. Yeah. And there's more. So I think the other trend that is really happening is that it's not one thing, it's multiple patient-facing solutions working in tandem, like after each other. And you can kind of use telehealth with secure messaging, with remote monitoring, with the check-in. Now the patient needs to come in.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I've heard, I was at a dinner last night, and one of the RPM vendors just talked about, it's how easy it is. It's just a box. They open up this box and just plug it into the wall and everything's great and works. I'm like, no. Because there's investors at the table as well, and so I know he was doing a product pitch, but that's not the way this works.
No. We've done remote monitoring for more than 10 years now.
Yeah.
There's much more to it, and the industry is still very young.
Yeah.
And so we have to, as an industry, figure out how we use these devices. They're here to stay, but how? Mm-hmm. How is it going to work best? Is it long-term remote monitoring, or is it short-term? Is it sending patients home with 2 or 3 months instead of thinking about it as something they have to do for years and years?
Right. Excellent advice. So now, and again, I always couch this because I want to look ahead, but I know we also have busy days. We're just, we're doing everything we can just get through today and tomorrow, and lead our companies and businesses. But what's a key strategy or trend that we must be ready for in 2 to 3 years from now? Kind of thinking ahead a little bit.
I think we must be prepared for digital health at scale.
Oh, yes.
So, because we saw what happened with COVID and how fast we needed to adapt to telehealth.
You got it.
Overnight. And everybody was like, kind of like, oh, that was not fun. And so I think last year people actually thought a little bit about that. But I think that a lot of people forgot it again.
I agree with you.
And so I think everybody needs to kind of think about scale, because patients will adopt these tools and they will adopt them really fast. So don't think about doing remote monitoring for 100 or 200. Think about the technologies you embrace can actually take care of thousands and thousands of patients.
Yes, yeah. Right.
I think that's one thing. And the other thing is we got to figure out how we work with the data. Yep. What data makes sense?
Yes.
There's so much now that when you have data from patients when they're at home all the time monitoring.
Yep.
Right? But I think there are great ways to look at that, where you can actually also figure out who needs help when, instead of treating every patient the same way.
Right.
So we'll probably get to really individualized treatment, like we've talked about for many years, but in another way.
Yeah, and that brings up the importance you just brought up about the platform. It's not about a silo piece of information. It's about the full platform, looking at that data holistically and not having, as John brought up, alert fatigue, data fatigue, to your point.
Yeah.
I completely agree. So, no, that's excellent. And again, that supports your concept around the whole platform to really understand where does data needs to go, who sees it, how do they see it, and then there's a managed process to that. It's not just data flying everywhere. Because it's starting to move, but you need the right data at the right time.
Exactly.
So to provide the right care. So, cool. Well, Dr. Bolbjerg, thank you so much for joining me. You've been a great guest through the years, and I hope you have a great rest of your conference.
Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. Thank you. And awesome. So Greg and Roberta, thank you guys. What a great, that's an hour-long show. So that was phenomenal.
Yeah. Time flies.
It does. But also, I just want to say, hey, thank you to everybody for joining us, and just a note of gratitude here to all the partners of the weekly syndicated radio show, This Just In. Thank you so much to Roberta. She was the initial brainchild of the This Just In radio show, and we've been broadcasting it now for 7 years. And also many thanks to This Just In radio show partners, Business Radio X, Rama on Healthcare, HealthcareNOW Radio, and certainly the HIMSS organization for all their continued support. Without them, the show would not be possible. And just thank you for everyone joining us today. And please tune in weekdays as we broadcast This Just In Radio at thisjustinradio.com at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. As always, you can track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor and use the hashtag ThisJustinRadio, and we can respond to your comments from the show. If you miss any of this broadcast or want to hear more, my shows are always posted at Apple iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Google Play, and TuneIn. So thanks, everyone. What a great HIMSS21, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Roberta.